Welcome to Tea Talk, U.S Embassy Yangon's official podcast. I'm Key Monroe, spokesperson for U.S Embassy Yangon. This year, the United States marks an extraordinary milestone, 250 years of independence and 250 years of American diplomacy. We call this commemoration Freedom 250. 250 years ago, the Declaration of Independence set forth enduring ideals that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that individual rights matter, and that freedom requires participation and responsibility. But Freedom 250 is not only about 1776. It is also about 250 years of American engagement with the world, advancing peace, security, economic growth, and global partnership. From strengthening trade and innovation to supporting education and cultural exchange, American diplomacy has helped shape a more connected and prosperous global community. Here in Myanmar, we are commemorating this milestone because the relationship between our two countries continues to be built on people-to-people ties, economic engagement, and shared aspirations for opportunity and prosperity. Today, we'll explore how Freedom 250 reflects both America's founding ideals and the ongoing work of diplomacy here in Yangon and Mandalay and around the world. Thank you. Freedom 250, The Great Conversation, was a two-part series. The first part was the Great Debate, where high school students and university students got together here at the American Center, and they learned about all of the 13 original colonies and the founding fathers, and after the revolution, how do we form a government that is inclusive for individual rights, states' rights, that also imposes checks and balances and allows the government to function? So through that came the Constitution that we know and love today. And that part two was a simulation exercise where the students, again, came back a month later after really marinating on the idea of what the founding fathers thought of for the Constitution and to ratify the U.S. Constitution. They had a blast, and you'll see some of those clips later on in the series. But today, I want to welcome our Public Affairs Officer at U.S Embassy Yangon, Felix Salazar. Hi, Felix.
Thanks for having me, Keeman.
Thanks, had to be here. I'd also like to point out Felix is my boss. Now, Freedom 250 is clearly much more than a single civic engagement program. Freedom 250 is the United States' major campaign for the whole year. If you don't mind, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Freedom 250 and what that means for not just America, but also the other elements of the campaign.
Yeah, thanks. Freedom 250 is really a great opportunity to talk about what makes America great, what made it great at its founding 250 years ago, and what from that time resounds into the present and will resound even beyond that. So the program that you did really touches on civic education, which is really important. The program also talks about freedom, talks about engagement, talks about faith. All of the elements that are thriving and alive in America today have influenced world history and will continue to influence the rest of the world for years to come. And so it's really a celebration of what has made that excellence stand out in terms of global development. And we're really excited to have that roll out here in Burma.
Yeah, thank you, Felix. And one way we're bringing that conversation to life is through our initiative, The Great Conversation, which I mentioned earlier, lessons learned from our founding fathers. Let's have a look. Welcome to The Great Conversation. This Freedom 250 interactive program explores the constitutional principles and how they shaped a nation, and how those same constitutional principles have shaped democratic governance and civic participation for over 250 years. Let's take a look. The Articles of Confederation helped with the transition to independence, but it could not keep the nation together over time. It was comprised of an alliance of sovereign states with a weak central government. And by 1787, the founding fathers knew that they had a challenge on their hands. And the question became, how do you create a balanced federal system that also grants states' rights and their authorities, as well as individual civil liberties and freedoms for the American people, as well as the ability to tax and do the business of the American people? So there was a lot of debate, there was a lot of competing interests and conflict. But through compromise, the U.S. Constitution was created in 1776. And here at the American Center, we created a replica of the United States Constitution that was signed in 1776. It continues to be a beacon of hope, but it also creates a balance for the federal and state governments and individual rights. Why is that? Because it created 3 co-branches of government at the federal level. So first you have the executive branch, and then you have the judicial branch as well as the legislative branch. But also in this Constitution that's been amended 27 times, you have individual civil liberties and rights for the American people. This continues to be an inspiration for democracies and governance around the world. Let's check it out. In this simulation exercise, students are stepping into the roles of historical figures from the Constitution days. They're representing the 13 original colonies, and they're thinking about all the things that our founding American fathers were grappling with during the time when they were ratifying the U.S. Constitution. So they're debating, they're compromising, and what are they doing this about? Well, they're thinking about states' rights, individual rights, a strong central authority government, but also how do you make a durable document over time. And that's what this whole Freedom 250 campaign is all about. It's not just about history, but it's also about how do you continue to thrive and have a durable system, but also none of that can be done without partnership. That was a look at the great conversation, an interactive and dynamic way of looking at American governance and civic engagement. Now, today, we're joined by Mia Thengji.
Go ahead.
Got it?
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm working on my Burmese, so yay. She's the Deputy Director of AmCham, Myanmar. Welcome, Mia. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Good. We're so excited that you're here today. We really want to talk about public-private partnerships and its way of how it ties into Freedom 250.
Right.
So I'd like to start with, for viewers that may not know AmCham, what is AmCham Myanmar?
So we are the American Chamber of Commerce in Myanmar, and our main purpose is to promote American businesses in Myanmar. And we do that through local partnerships and upholding the highest business standards. We mainly foster communication and facilitate dialogue between the private sector and the relevant stakeholders for a stable and transparent business environment, and we encourage responsible business in the country.
Wow, that is super interesting. Public-private partnerships are essential, particularly for how American government, but also democracies in general, thrive as far as innovation, research, and taking things up to the next future. So I'd like to kind of drive the conversation a little bit and get your thoughts on what ways do you help promote U.S. business and investment and strengthen trade ties here in Myanmar?
Right. So dialogue is really at the heart of what AmCham does. We serve as a platform where members can share insights and build connections and promote responsible business practices like transparency, consistency, and open communication, all supported by structured frameworks, right? That's very important. And we believe these are critical for investor confidence. So through steady engagement activities, we help build the trust between the private sector and the relevant stakeholders.
That's really interesting. And then what role would you say the U.S. Embassy or the U.S. government plays in this?
Right, so we work very closely with the embassy to ensure alignment and to have regular communication, because the embassy provides important diplomatic context, right, and the guidance. While we at AmCham, we reflect the perspectives and the experiences of the business community. So when there is a well-coordinated effort, it means that our members can stay informed in a timely manner and operate responsibly within the local environment.
Very interesting. And now that I've explained to the audience that the United States is celebrating 250 years as a country, what are some ways that AmCham and American businesses or the business community here are helping support that?
Right, so we believe that for sustainable development to happen, everyone has to chip in, right? And this is where the partnership between the public sector and the private sector is very important. Initiatives like Freedom 250 are an excellent platform for businesses to participate, be it sharing their stories about their resilience or core principles and vision, while supporting important sectors like trade and education. because the private sector, they bring in the investment, they bring in the expertise and innovation, right? While the public sector would be offering policy framework and oversight. And when there is a constructive partnership, we believe it drives inclusive growth.
Thank you. Mia, thank you so much for joining us today. I wish we could, I have so many million questions, so we look to have you back on at some point.
Right. Thank you for having me.
As we mark 250 years of American ideals and what shared values resonate most in looking at the global environment, it's clear that public-private partnerships are a key ingredient to a thriving democracy. So strong partnerships between governments and businesses and communities are what drive prosperity. So we'd like to thank Mia for her participation today and for AmCham being a vital partner here in Myanmar, as well as to promote mutually beneficial economic growth for Myanmar and the United States. So stay tuned. Thank you. Hi everybody, welcome back to Tea Talk. We are back again with Felix, the Public Affairs Officer here at U.S Embassy Yangon. We were talking about Freedom 250 and what that means for the United States, 250 years of American excellence and a celebration of not just diplomacy, but leadership and innovation, you name it, all of the things that make America great. As we look forward to the next 250 years, Felix, what message do you hope communities take away from the Freedom 250 campaign?
You know, we've got a lot of exciting programs coming up. For example, we just had an event about UFC and the rise of the UFC and how it's become a global juggernaut. We even had a former UFC fighter to join us to discuss afterwards. On its face, it would seem that it's about fighting, the actual sport, but really it's emblematic of what America is, right, and its fighting spirit, right? So when people attended that event, they walked away with the sense that America's a sort of place that doesn't give up, that in the face of obstacles, innovates and comes up with different ways of solving a problem so that it reaches an endpoint of success. And so that fighting spirit theme is
like
what
resiliency.
people walk away with that sense, right? And that's going to be the case with other programs. So we're going to have Ladies of Liberty, for example, which will talk about the role that women played in establishing America and how women in America have made tremendous contributions, not just to the founding of America and to its building, but also have influenced the rest of the world, right? We're also going to look at organizations like Pepsi, and they want to talk about the history of their company. And in their case, they're actually going to do a bit of an experiment where you can mess with the levels of sugar or mix with different ingredients to come up with a new product. But again, the spirit of innovation, right? So it isn't just about Pepsi the drink, it's about this idea of changing things for the better, right? We've got companies like Caterpillar who want to come and bring their engines to show off the engineering of American products, right? In Caterpillar, for example, like you have an engine that was built 50 years ago and you can still find replacement parts for it because it's still working, right? So companies like that and programs like that really ingrain in the minds of people who attend that America isn't just about these fun activities, it's about the spirit and the mindset behind it, right? That's really what Freedom 250 is about. It's what made America great, and what is making it great now will continue to make it great 250 years after the fact.
I'm glad that you brought that up. We recently had Mia Than-Ji from the American AmCham on to talk about public-private partnerships and how innovation and that public-private partnership with government and with private sector is needed to thrive and continue to prosper. So thank you for highlighting some of those programs. So for our interested viewers and listeners, how can people stay tuned to some of this wonderful programming that you just described, or if they want to attend themselves, what are some of the ways that they can get engaged and stay connected?
Yeah, well, the great news is they can come, Tuesday through Saturday, we're open, and you can just walk in.
Here at the ACY?
Here at the ACY in Yangon. If you're up in, in Mandalay, if you're up in Mandalay, they also operate on those same days, and you can show up. No need to make a reservation or anything, just show up. You can also follow us on Facebook. Each of those centers has its own Facebook account, and we'll send you regular updates. You'll see the events that are coming up, There are a couple that you know, because of the capacity you'll have to sign up for, but if you regularly check our Facebook sites, you'll be able to be first in, right? And then, you know, if you just hang out at the spaces, right, you'll see signage, you'll see posters, and you hear the word from other students, and you'll be excited and you want to come and join as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I love always coming to ACY to see the spirit here, like the students and all the engagement that's going on. It's almost like a college campus or like a community center in a lot of ways. So thank you, Felix, for joining us today and providing all this great perspective for the show.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So Freedom 250 is not just a celebration or a reflection of the past. It's also about the future and a launchpad to what is possible in the next 250 years. It's a platform for dialogue, learning, and partnership. So we'd like to thank you for joining us today on Tea Talk, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you. 250 is not just about a commemoration of the past, it's a launchpad for the future. As Felix shared, it reflects 250 years of American diplomacy, innovation, and global leadership. And as Mia highlighted, strong partnerships between governments, businesses, and communities are what advance prosperity and opportunity. For 250 years, American ideals have shaped peace, security, and economic growth around the world. Today, these same ideals continue to strengthen partnerships here in Myanmar and globally. Thank you for joining us on Tea Talk. We look forward to continuing this conversation. Don't forget to follow the Embassy on Facebook, along with our ACY and JCM pages, to stay connected on the latest news and events. We would also love to hear your thoughts in the comment sections. Toi jamano.